Like, is there a way to connect these two so it's not quite that random?
Well, he's the Earth elemental guy. So, were you responsible for the earthquakes? Was that you?
Well,
I'm just
kind of,
curious.
yeah, actually.
Well, since you bring it up, let me show you. And what a coincidence! We happen to be right outside the halls of Mendo's.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
We do have a minor problem.
All right.
It is very minor. We have a staring across at someone who's not paying attention to me moment for Finway.
Mm-hmm.
We have, well, I guess it's all Finway, huh? I was gonna say we have one for. Oh no! We have one for. So Vaire.
Right. Vaire sees
Vaire
Finway at the
sees
introduction
Finway.
to the ambassadors, and then disappears to make her tapestry.
Melian, who is Ingwe making cow eyes at? Because we can't give it to two of them and then not give one to Ingwe.
Ingwe is going to have a serious conversation with Varda.
Yeah, he's gonna have a one-on-one.
No, but he's got to have one of those like staring across the room moments. Is what I'm saying.
No, he's gonna have a one-on-one with the Queen of Arda. I think he's okay.
All right, fine.
Also, his dead wife needs to come up at some point.
What's that?
His dead wife needs to come up, and Tulkas needs to be like, "Oh, elves are breakable."
Are we doing that
actually,
in this
that's
episode?
a really good point.
Okay.
We could do that.
Okay.
That would be good. Yeah.
Yeah.
We need to do that. So he's gonna make cow eyes at Tulkas, is what you're saying.
Sure, go for it.
This works for me.
Is there gonna be some kind of reassurance from somebody that it's
no.
They just leave him in the dark that sorry, your wife is dead. That's
who's
sad.
gonna tell him, Mendo's? Like it's not. I
it's
think
not really his MO, is it?
Yeah, like we can't. I don't think we should make that explicit. Like
there's the possibility that Nienna could comfort him and cry with him because that's what Nienna does.
Yeah, I kind of like that. I could see Nienna explaining like how mortality for the elves sort of works, but I don't want to put that exposition on scene if we could on screen.
Well, it could be. Well, what we could do is have this scene that we're talking about between who's more Nienna, Ingwe, and Tulkas.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And part of Nienna's comfort could be, well, it's not forever.
Yeah.
Which is an unusual thing to say to someone who's mourning a death.
Right.
So.
But it could be interpreted as just like you'll be in heaven together, and just leave it at that for now, because I don't want to bog down the episode.
Oh right, yeah, we don't have to explain reincarnation at this point.
Yeah.
But to at least put the hint of it in there somehow, like have something Nienna says doesn't really match with your wife's dead.
Right.
Yeah.
Like dead or most.
Yeah. So
he's not all dead.
We need more Princess Bride references in this show. Brendan, I can't say names today. Brandon is saying might Melian notice him later and he doesn't see her. She wouldn't freeze, but might be intrigued. And I'm maintaining that I just don't want to make it a reason that she goes to Middle Earth.
Yeah, I want her to go to Middle Earth just to go.
Yeah.
Because it's her destiny.
Yes. Okay, so Aule brings Finway to the gates of Mandos, to like the courtyard, which is where
Are we gonna figure out where everything is, like in relation? Oh no, we're doing that next week, right? That's when
No, we're not.
Following week.
We're doing that whenever people have time for it.
Okay. Next week is a regular episode, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have to.
What are we talking? I'm sorry, I was reading.
Some of, I think Marie in particular, but also at least one other person who I can't remember now, was saying we kind of needed to maybe have some extra world building sessions to figure out more of the details of like.
Yeah, no, that's definitely. And quite honestly, that's outside the purview of what we're doing here anyway. I don't have a problem doing that, but it's not necessarily a script.
No.
Specific
This
issue.
is a separate
The only time it comes up with the scripts is for things like the culture of the Noldor and Valinor.
Right. Yeah. When we get to actually, basically, we'll be using it to write scripts better.
Right. Yes.
So I agree. Across the series.
Right. I don't think that anything that we're doing at this level.
No.
Has to
it's show Bible stuff. It's
if we need to invent things, we can invent things.
Right.
But
when we hire a new script writer, they have to read the Bible so they know what they're doing. That's
exactly.
Yes. Writing the Bible for that. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So, all right. So we get we do LA. We get the Finway sees the tapestry, and he maybe he runs over to it what is it, and he's like, is that me? And that's when Vaire comes in and Ale defers to her.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe show him actually specifically showing deference to her, because this is her place after all.
I would much rather them kind of be engaged in conversation and just have him sort of be looking at the tapestries.
Yeah.
And then see it and just kind of and then ask, where the heck are we actually? This is what is this I'm looking at, and where the heck are we? And he's like, oh look, we've come to the halls of Mandos. Maybe I should let the person who doesn't say words explain it to you.
Yeah. Well, Ale doesn't know.
I would kind of really
Ale doesn't know anything more than Finway does about this thing.
Right.
But I mean, that was a problem that I realized we are going to have if we don't have somebody. I think we actually need Mandos to say some lines here. But
why Mandos?
I would kind of like it to sort of be they're walking along, and maybe there's some background music, but the closer they get to the tapestry, the music gets softer and softer, and eventually dies out. And then he kind of gets maybe uncomfortable about everything, and is kind of what is this place? This is not the same as every other place we've been to so far.
Okay.
Ale is kind of how astute of you to notice. You're absolutely right.
Well, but Ale didn't bring him here by accident. That's the thing. Ale, they came here specifically to have the conversation about Melkor.
Yeah, but that doesn't necessarily mean he has to tell him hey, check it out, we're gonna go to this prison where Melkor is, right? As you were saying, he could be discussing all kinds of stuff with him, and then they bring up the the earthquakes and all of that, and he can segue into that. You know what I mean? It's for me, it's much more effective if they're just kind of, everything has kind of been, guided tour, sure, but sort of haphazard wherever they feel like they want to go. That's where they go that day, and then they just happen to pass. Why would they want to go to Mandos, right?
Yeah, but you're also talking about. Here's the problem: is that the halls of Mandos and the halls of Ale are not necessarily right next door to each other. It's much more likely that the hall of Ale is close to Tyrion, which is why the Noldor are going to set up shop there.
This is why I was asking the question, have we figured out?
Yeah, I know. But I get that. But I'm gonna have to say that I don't think that I feel like Mandos is gonna be a little further afield than.
Yeah, I feel like nobody accidentally goes to Mandos.
Right. They
so it's not on the way anywhere. It's not next to anything.
Bobway tripped, fell, and hit his head on a rock. I'm pretty sure that counts as accidentally going to Mandos.
Bobway reference check. Okay, so let's. We almost made it the entire episode without doing that.
Would they bring him? It's to me, the question sort of becomes they're at the Forge of Ale, and Ale's kind of giving them his overview of and this is how geology works, right? And that's the question. Well, can you explain what all of the earthquakes were about? Because that was pretty friggin' scary, and I would like to be able to understand that a little better. And he's like, Well, I can give you the rundown of, the mechanics of tectonic, shifting, but really I think the question you're asking is why did we fight the war? Yeah, what did we fight? The question you're really asking is why did we fight the war? And to answer that, we have to go somewhere a little bit off the beaten path.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying is that I don't want to show Owley and Finway like walking down the road while they're having the conversation, because like it's weird. Like that causes us to have to address some transportation issues there. Whereas if
arriving can still be an uncomfortable moment where he's like, what is this? Like, he doesn't have to say, well, he can even tell him, like, I'm going to take you to the Halls of Mandos. And then he's like, what's the Halls of Mandos? And it's like, it's kind of better if you just see it. And then they arrive there and he's like, this place is different than the other places. What's going on?
Yeah, and then I'm fine with that, yeah. But we still need to find a way to introduce Vaire. What we could do is have Owley leave Finway there.
Why would you leave someone at the Halls of Mandos?
I don't know. I'm trying to figure out a way to extricate Owley from the situation because he doesn't fit the vibe.
So, okay, here's the deal. Mandos and Vaire come out and actually welcome them to the halls. They kind of set the ground rules where, like, you're not going to be able to go past the main entrance. Like, that's private stuff. You feel free to wander the grounds all you like. We'll be about if you need anything. And so, like, I feel like this is really an opportunity for them to very specifically leave the trio to themselves to discuss, kind of cover what they've seen and be introspective, because that to me is sort of what Mandos is kind of all about, right? You contemplate your life in all of Mandos, right? So
this is becoming a very long scene.
Well, I mean, not really. Like, they should be talking about, we should get, this is an opportunity for us to establish how they feel in pretty concrete terms with one another without wasting a lot of time on anything else, because they're basically being invited to, like, we should maybe.
So you're saying that it's not just Finway there now. You're saying that it's
all three of them.
That all three of them are there now.
Right. Finway has, they can go their separate ways within the courtyard. And Finway has his moment specifically with Vaire in front of the tapestry.
That actually, okay. Actually, I like that there, because if the three of them are there, two of them, like, Owley can be there, like, Finway can wander off.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's not like Owley vanished or just left him there. He's still talking to the other two. And that's when he sees the tapestry. Vaire comes up behind him. He says, "Is that me?" Yeah. She nods. She's clearly sad.
Yeah.
And he says, we're going to have a baby? And she nods. She's clearly sad.
It's like, this is the best thing ever. Why are you sad?
But she doesn't answer him. Yes. And that's that scene.
Anything I could say to you at this point would only confuse you further, so.
You know what we could do later is at some point we could have it rain and, like, show tears on the tapestry.
Oh my God. Yes, we could do that, I suppose. It would be very corny, but we could totally do that.
Well, tears on the stained glass window to make the images in the stained glass window cry is a thing people do.
It doesn't necessarily mean it's good.
Are Vaire's tapestries waterproof?
Of course,
if they're outside in the courtyard, they must be.
Yeah. They're everything proof. They don't fade. They don't unravel. They're ultra super.
They don't burn. They don't blend.
Yeah. The colors don't run.
And I don't know. I don't feel like being afraid of cheesiness or corniness is to avoid doing something. Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
I would be pretty comfortable with the pathetic fallacy of, like, it starts to rain as they're leaving. and then we cut back to the tapestry, and like it doesn't have to be like, we don't have to do a computer generated tear actually tracing down the cheek, but just like having streaks of water, like on the
cloth. Yeah, that will send the message that we're trying to send.
There are good ways
for a subtle message that everything's going to go horribly wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. So, then where do we go? We
need to bring Ulmo back in.
Yes. Why?
Because he's the one who is so adamantly, no, the elves shouldn't come here.
Yeah.
Does he reappear, or has he just been stomped off into his little deep end having a...
Well, we need to get back to the scene where Finway and Varda have their little moment, like looking out across the sea, right? I feel like that's when that is happening.
Okay, but again, is she talking to him?
Not necessarily. I think Ulmo should maybe be present for that conversation, and is starting to maybe, like, especially on, maybe he's trying to work on Finway and be like, hey, remember that that girl you had all the way across the sea over there? Like, maybe you should be thinking about getting back to that at some point. Like, you've been here a couple hundred years now. Like, you might want to get on that. And then he has that moment where he's like, oh, she's like a distant shining star. And I like that.
Catch a falling star and put it in your pocket.
Oh my God, I'm going to hit you with a bat.
That would have to be quite the long bat, sir.
Something. I'm not going to say it. So, yeah, I mean, maybe Ulmo has specifically not been hanging out with them because he's kind of a grumpy sulk. And somebody, maybe specifically Vaire is like, we need to take you and meet Ulmo because he's,
Well, it's not going to be Vaire. He doesn't talk.
Or not Vaire, I'm sorry, Varda. Maybe Varda specifically wants him to reconcile with, like, she wants to get him to come around a little bit, maybe.
Or maybe Tulkas.
Tulkas brings him to
see?
I think they could go together. Like, I really think Varda should be trying to really work on, like, sort of the backdrop of this episode is Varda worried about home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so this is sort of kind of her angle of, this is, she's kind of coming down on the side of, oh yeah, you know what, I really agree that this is probably for the best and they need to come here. And then she takes them to meet Ulmo because she's pushing that narrative, and then she has the moment where she's like, oh my God, this is the wrong thing to do. We have to stop what we're doing. And then they have the big old sort of argument where...
Okay, so I see what you're saying. Whereas, okay, so you're saying that Finway says that Muriel is like the stars or whatever he says, and she goes, yeah, they can't see the stars here.
Yeah. I mean,
or maybe Ulmo could say that. Ulmo could say, well, you can't see the stars here.
Yeah. Or even Finway himself could say, but but it's been how many hundreds of years?
It's been a while since I've seen the stars.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then
you get a close up of fit. Yeah. I like that.
And he's like, see what I'm saying about this thing here? See this?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, you're totally right. All right, fine.
And then she goes to speak to Manwë, and he says, well, have you talked to them? And she says, well, I've been with them all this time. I was with them when this happened, and I was with them when this happened. And then Manwë says, no, did you talk to them?
Yeah.
Which she has neglected to really do. She's greeted them. She hasn't been standoffish, but she hasn't really.
I would like him to actually sell that as she's. I mean, her angle is that she's listening.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yes.
She's the listener, and she's been listening, and he's like, gently is kind of like, you know, that's great, but you really should just talk to them, right? Like, go talk to them now that you've listened and you know who they are.
Okay.
See what they have to say.
All right. So the end of the Vaire incident. That's the end of Act 3.
Mm-hmm.
Ish. The conversation between where Finway brings all this stuff up with Olmo, that's the beginning of Act 4.